She laughed at his broken shoes, until he bought her family's business. The bell above the door of Vivian's boutique chimed softly as the afternoon sun cast golden rectangles across the polished oak floors. Elena Vivian, not just the owner's daughter but the self-appointed queen of the sales floor, glanced up from behind the glass counter where she had been arranging a display of imported silk scarves. Her perfectly manicured fingers paused midair as her gaze locked onto the man who had just entered. "You have got to be kidding me," she whispered to Margot, her fellow sales associate and loyal echo chamber. The man who stood awkwardly in the entryway seemed wildly out of place among the boutique's crystal chandeliers and mannequins draped in this season's most exclusive designs. His faded jeans had clearly seen better days, and his plain gray t-shirt looked like it had been purchased from a discount department store. But what truly captured Elena's attention, what made her perfectly glossed lips curl into a smirk, were his shoes. They were disasters, scuffed brown leather with worn soles, a tear near the left toe, and laces that didn't even match. One was black, the other brown, as if he'd grabbed whatever was available in a rush. "Look at those shoes," Elena said, not bothering to lower her voice. "They're practically begging to be put out of their misery." Margot giggled on cue, covering her mouth with a hand adorned with designer rings. "Maybe he took a wrong turn. The homeless shelter's 3 blocks down." The boutique wasn't particularly crowded, a middle-aged woman browsing evening wear and a young couple examining watches, but those within earshot turned to look. Elena, emboldened by their attention, straightened her Versace blouse and stepped out from behind the counter. "Welcome to Vivian's," she announced, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "Can I help you find something? Perhaps directions to somewhere more suitable?" The man, somewhere in his early 30s with dark hair that curled slightly at his temples, smiled. It wasn't the embarrassed, shrinking smile Elena had expected. Instead, it was calm, almost amused. "Just browsing for now, thanks," he said in a voice that carried an unexpected warmth and confidence. He moved deeper into the store, his eyes scanning the displays with careful attention. Elena trailed him, maintaining a distance that suggested she was both supervising and showcasing her superiority. When he stopped to examine a display of men's leather wallets, items that started at $300, she couldn't help herself. "Those are hand-stitched Italian leather," she explained loudly, as if speaking to someone hard of hearing. "The craftsmanship is reflected in the price point, which might be a bit steep for some budgets." The man nodded thoughtfully, gently returning the wallet to its display. "The stitching is excellent, though I've seen similar work from artisans in Valencia who don't command quite such a premium." Elena blinked, momentarily thrown by his knowledgeable response. But she recovered quickly, her practiced smile never faltering. "Well, our clientele appreciates the exclusivity that comes with our selection," she replied, gesturing toward the boutique at large. "We cater to those with discerning tastes." Her emphasis on the last 2 words made her meaning perfectly clear. "You don't belong here." The man continued his slow circuit of the store, pausing occasionally to examine items with what Elena considered unwarranted familiarity. A small crowd of regular customers had gathered near the jewelry counter, pretending to shop while actually watching the unfolding drama. Elena felt their eyes on her, expecting a show. "You know," she said loudly as the man examined a display of men's watches, "I'm getting a real walking thrift rack vibe here. Those shoes look like they've walked through several lifetimes, and not glamorous ones." Laughter rippled through the boutique. The young couple by the watches couldn't hide their smirks, and Margot nearly choked on her suppressed giggles. The man looked down at his shoes and then up at Elena with an expression she couldn't quite read. Was it embarrassment? Anger? Whatever it was, it sent a spark of satisfaction through her. This was her kingdom, and he was the jester. "I've actually been curious about this place," he said, ignoring her barb. "I heard the Vivian family was considering expansion. Is that true?" Elena's eyebrows shot up. How would someone like him know about their business plans? The expansion talks were still in preliminary stages. Her mother had mentioned investors and potential new locations, but nothing was public knowledge yet. "I think you misheard," she replied coolly. And if you're looking for fashion within your price range, may I suggest the discount outlet, across town? We're a bit out of your league here. The man held her gaze for a moment longer than was comfortable. Then he simply nodded, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Thanks for your time, he said quietly. This has been informative. As he turned to leave, Elena noticed Sandra, their newest employee, emerge from the back room. Unlike the others, Sandra's face showed no amusement, only discomfort and something that looked disappointingly like disapproval. Have a good afternoon, sir, Sandra called after him as he reached the door. The man paused, nodded at Sandra with genuine appreciation, and then stepped out into the afternoon sunshine. As the door closed behind him, the boutique erupted in chatter and laughter. Elena basked in her performance, accepting Margot's high five and the approving looks from regular customers. Did you see those shoes? She laughed. It's like he picked them out of a dumpster. Only Sandra remained silent, organizing a rack of dresses with unusual concentration. What's wrong with you? Elena demanded, noticing her lack of participation. That guy was totally lost. He needed the reality check. Sandra looked up, her expression carefully neutral. Maybe he was just looking for something nice. Not everyone advertises their bank account on their feet. Elena rolled her eyes dramatically. Please. This isn't a charity shop. We have standards here. What Elena couldn't know, what none of them could know, was that the man in the broken shoes had just learned everything he needed to know about Vivian's boutique. And in the coming weeks, those scuffed shoes would walk right back into Elena's perfectly arranged world and shatter it completely. The back office of Vivian's boutique told a very different story than the gleaming sales floor. Vivian Moretti, founder, owner, and Elena's increasingly worried mother, massaged her temples as she stared at the spreadsheet illuminating her computer screen. The numbers glared back at her, unyielding and merciless. Down another 18%, she murmured, taking a sip of cold coffee. Third month in a row. Behind the carefully curated image of success, the imported marble countertops, the champagne served to VIP customers, the exclusive designer labels, Vivian's boutique was drowning. Quietly, but unmistakably drowning. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Sandra stood in the doorway, hesitating. The new shipment from Milan arrived, but there's a problem, she said. They only sent half our order and said the rest is pending payment confirmation. Vivian nodded, forcing a smile. Thank you, Sandra. I'll handle it. After Sandra left, Vivian opened her bottom drawer and pulled out a thick folder labeled Accounts Payable. Inside lay a cascade of final notices, payment reminders, and increasingly stern letters from suppliers. The boutique that had once been the crown jewel of the city's luxury shopping district was now teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. The door burst open without warning. Elena breezed in, her arms laden with shopping bags bearing the logos of competing luxury retailers. Mom, you won't believe what I found at Nordstrom. They're practically giving away Louboutins compared to what we charge, she announced, dropping her purchases onto a chair. Her eyes fell on the open folder. What's all that? Vivian quickly closed the folder. Just some paperwork. Elena, we need to talk about your spending. Things are tight right now. Elena laughed, the sound bright and unconcerned. Tight? We just sold that Hermes collection last week. And Mrs. Harrington bought 3 evening gowns yesterday. One good day doesn't make up for months of decline, Vivian replied, her voice sharper than intended. Online retailers are eating us alive. The rent increased again. Our suppliers are demanding payments up front now because we've been late too often. Elena's perfectly shaped eyebrows knitted together. So raise our prices. Our customers can afford it. They come here for exclusivity. That's exactly the problem. They're not coming like they used to. Vivian sighed, suddenly looking every one of her 57 years. The world is changing, Elena. Luxury isn't just about high prices anymore, it's about experience, ethics, digital presence. We're falling behind. Elena waved away her mother's concerns. You worry too much. We just need a fresh marketing campaign. I'm thinking an Instagram series, me modeling our new arrivals. My followers would love it. Vivian bit back her frustration. Her daughter had grown up cushioned by privilege, sheltered from the brutal realities of running a business. While Elena saw herself as the boutique star attraction, Vivian increasingly viewed her daughter's entitled attitude as part of the problem. That's not going to save us, Vivian said firmly. We need serious help. Professional guidance. Elena's phone chimed with a notification. She glanced at it, already losing interest in the conversation. Whatever you think is best, Mom. Oh. I need to confirm my reservation at Lumiere for tonight. Taking some friends to celebrate the spring collection. As Elena tapped at her phone, Vivian fought the urge to snatch the device and throw it against the wall. Instead, she took a deep breath. Elena, I've made a decision. I've been in talks with Morris Consulting. They specialize in reviving struggling luxury retailers. This caught Elena's attention. Struggling? We're not struggling. And who are these people? Some corporate vultures who want to turn us into a chain store? They're industry experts, Vivian countered. And they have a potential investor who specifically wants to help businesses like ours. Someone who appreciates what we've built but can bring fresh perspective. Elena's eyes narrowed. I don't like this. This is our boutique. Our name. Our reputation. It won't be anything if we go bankrupt, Vivian said bluntly. The meeting is next week. I expect you to be there and to be professional. Elena rolled her eyes. Fine. But I have final say on anything that affects the sales floor. That's my domain. After Elena sashayed out, Vivian turned back to her computer. She opened her email and reread the message from Morris Consulting. Dear Ms. Moretti, our client was particularly interested in your establishment after a recent visit. He believes Vivian's boutique has untapped potential despite current market challenges. The capital injection would be substantial, but he insists on majority control to implement necessary changes. This is a rare opportunity. He usually focuses on larger ventures but has a personal interest in reviving underdog luxury retail. Please consider this offer carefully. As discussed, your current financial situation may not allow for many alternatives. Regards, Jonathan Morris. Vivian closed her eyes. 25 years of building this business, of selecting every fixture, of knowing every customer by name. And now she was contemplating selling control to a stranger. Her phone rang, the bank. Again. She let it go to voicemail. Later that evening, while Elena hosted her lavish dinner on the company credit card, Vivian sat alone in her home office. The contract from Morris Consulting lay before her, the signature line waiting. With hands that trembled slightly, she picked up her pen. The boutique wouldn't survive another 6 months without intervention. Elena would never forgive her, but someday she might understand. I'm sorry, she whispered to no one in particular, and signed her name on the line. Outside her window, storm clouds gathered, a perfect mirror to the tempest about to engulf her daughter's carefully ordered world. In just a few weeks, Elena would come face to face with consequences she couldn't possibly imagine, delivered by a man in shoes she had openly mocked. And Vivian, despite her guilt, couldn't help but think that perhaps her entitled daughter was long overdue for a lesson in humility. To Vivian's, the most fabulous boutique in the city. Elena raised her champagne flute as a dozen stylishly dressed guests echoed her toast. The boutique glittered under special event lighting. Crystal glasses clinked, while a hired pianist played softly in the corner. Elena had transformed the sales floor into a showcase for the summer collection, complete with live models, canapes from the city's hottest restaurant, and enough champagne to float a yacht. Darling, this is divine, cooed Natasha, Elena's closest friend and favorite sycophant. The event must have cost a fortune. Elena laughed, tossing her perfectly highlighted hair. Only the best for our top clients. Besides, we'll make it back tonight. Mrs. Carson already has her eye on that Valentino gown. What Elena didn't know, what Vivian hadn't had the courage to tell her, was that this event hadn't been approved by the boutique's new majority owner. In fact, The extravagant party was happening exactly one day before the scheduled meeting to formally introduce the mysterious investor who now controlled 60% of Vivian's boutique. Sandra approached Elena, concern visible in her eyes. "Ms. Moretti is looking for you. She seems upset." Elena sighed dramatically. "Can it wait? I'm hosting. She mentioned something about an unauthorized expense? The invoice for tonight just came through." With an exaggerated eye roll, Elena handed her glass to Natasha and made her way to the back office. She found her mother sitting rigidly at her desk, face pale. "Mom, seriously? The party is a huge success. 3 major sales already, and we've barely started." Vivian looked up, her expression a mixture of anger and fear. "You charged $17,000 to the business account without approval." Elena waved dismissively. "It's an investment. You're always talking about increasing foot traffic. Well, the store is packed. With your friends drinking our profits," Vivian said sharply. "Elena, things have changed. I tried to tell you, but you weren't listening. We have new management." Elena froze. "What are you talking about?" Vivian pushed a folder across the desk. 3 weeks ago, I signed an agreement with Morris Consulting. Their client has acquired majority ownership of Vivian's. The color drained from Elena's face. "You sold our boutique? Without consulting me?" "I sold controlling interest to save the boutique," Vivian corrected. "They're keeping our name, keeping me on as a creative consultant, keeping most of the staff. But yes, someone else makes the financial decisions now." Elena's hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. "This isn't possible. This is our legacy. My future. It was this or bankruptcy," Vivian said quietly. "The new owner is coming tomorrow to discuss strategy going forward. And Elena," her voice grew stern, "this party will be the last unauthorized expense you ever charged to this business." The next morning, Elena arrived at the boutique 30 minutes late for the meeting. She'd spent the night alternating between fury and disbelief, finally falling into a restless sleep at dawn. Her usual immaculate appearance was slightly disheveled, designer clothes still perfect, but her eyes betraying her emotional state. The conference room door was closed when she arrived. Making an entrance had always been her specialty, so she squared her shoulders, fixed her most confident smile, and swept in without knocking. "Sorry for the delay. Traffic was a nightmare and—" The words died in her throat. Seated at the head of the table, directly across from her mother, was the man in the broken shoes. Except today, his footwear was impeccable, polished Italian leather that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His faded jeans and t-shirt had been replaced by a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was freshly cut, emphasizing strong cheekbones and observant eyes that were currently fixed directly on her. "I don't believe this," Elena mumbled, her designer purse slipping from suddenly nerveless fingers. "Ms. Vivian, thank you for joining us," the man said, his voice as calm and measured as she remembered. "Please have a seat. We were just reviewing last night's expenses." Elena remained frozen in the doorway, her brain struggling to connect the scruffy browser she'd mocked with the commanding presence now occupying her mother's usual seat. "Elena," Vivian said sharply, "this is Lucas Reed, the new majority owner of Vivian's boutique." Lucas smiled, not unkindly, but with unmistakable confidence. "We've met, actually. Though I don't believe I properly introduced myself. Last time, I believe I was described as—" He consulted a small notebook. "A walking thrift rack with shoes that had walked through several lifetimes, and not glamorous ones." The blood drained from Elena's face as her own words came back to haunt her. Around the table sat the boutique's department heads, Sandra, and 2 strangers in business attire, all watching her with varying degrees of discomfort and curiosity. "That's not, I didn't," Elena stammered. "Please sit," Lucas repeated, gesturing to the only empty chair. "We have a lot to discuss about the future of this establishment." Legs suddenly wooden, Elena sank into the chair. Her mother wouldn't meet her eyes. "As I was saying," Lucas continued, Vivian's boutique has tremendous potential despite its current financial difficulties. My background is in turning around struggling luxury retailers while preserving their unique character. However, his gaze returned to Elena. Success requires the right team with the right attitudes. He opened a sleek presentation folder and slid copies to everyone at the table. This is my 3-year plan for Vivian's. You'll notice significant changes to operations, marketing, and personnel structure. Elena flipped to the organizational chart. Her name, previously listed directly below her mother's as floor director and brand ambassador, was nowhere to be found in the upper hierarchy. Instead, she found herself buried in the back pages under inventory management. There must be a mistake, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas closed his folder and leaned forward slightly. No mistake, Ms. Vivian. Consider it an opportunity to learn the business from the ground up, something that perhaps should have happened years ago. His eyes held hers, not with cruelty but with firm resolve. In that moment, Elena realized that her careless words to a stranger in scuffed shoes had set in motion the unraveling of her carefully constructed world. And this was only the beginning. I am not wearing this, Elena declared, holding up the navy polo shirt with Vivian's embroidered on the left breast pocket. It was part of a new uniform. Practical black slacks and sensible shoes completed the ensemble. Gone were the days when she could float around the sales floor in designer outfits that doubled as walking advertisements. Sandra, who now occupied the glass-walled office that had once been Elena's, merely raised an eyebrow. Mr. Reed was very clear. All back-of-house staff wear the standard uniform. The stockroom felt claustrophobic compared to the airy, elegant sales floor. Boxes lined the walls, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and a perpetual scent of cardboard and packing materials hung in the air. This was Elena's new domain, inventory management, a glorified title for what amounted to unpacking shipments, processing returns, and keeping the stockroom organized. I have a master's degree in fashion merchandising, Elena hissed. I built relationships with half our client base. This is your job now, Sandra interjected, her voice firm but not unkind. The first shipment from Milan needs to be unpacked and logged by end of day. As Sandra turned to leave, Elena grabbed her arm. You're enjoying this, aren't you? 1 minute you're folding sweaters, the next you're giving me orders. Sandra gently removed Elena's hand. He noticed how you treat people. That's why you're here now. Those words hung in the air long after Sandra had returned to the sales floor, leaving Elena alone with mountains of inventory and wounded pride. The first week was excruciating. Elena's manicured nails chipped and broke as she wrestled with packaging. Her back ached from lifting boxes. Worst of all was handling the returns, examining garments that had been rejected, cataloging the reasons, and processing the paperwork. Each returned item felt like a personal failure. By Friday, she'd had enough. She stormed into her mother's office, now shared with Lucas, without knocking. This ends now, she announced. I've played along with this little humiliation game, but it's gone far enough. Lucas looked up from his laptop, expression neutral. Vivian, sitting across from him reviewing fabric swatches, closed her eyes in mortification. Elena, we're in the middle of something, Vivian began. No, it's all right, Lucas said, closing his laptop. Let's hear what Ms. Vivian has to say. Elena crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. I'm being punished because you came in here looking homeless and I didn't roll out the red carpet. That's not fair, and it's not good business. You need me on the floor. I know our clients. Lucas leaned back in his chair, studying her for a moment. Is that what you think this is? Punishment? Obviously. You're trying to teach me some lesson about judging people. Interesting perspective. Lucas stood and walked to the window overlooking the sales floor. Come here, please. Reluctantly, Elena joined him. Below, the boutique hummed with activity. Sandra was assisting an elderly woman with obvious care and patience. 2 other sales associates were arranging a new display under the guidance of a woman Elena didn't recognize. What do you see? Lucas asked. My job being done by other people, Elena replied bitterly. I see a business transforming, Lucas countered. Sales are up 15% since the reorganization. Customer satisfaction scores have improved. Staff turnover has decreased. Elena scoffed. 2 weeks of novelty. It won't last. Lucas turned to face her directly. This isn't about broken shoes or hurt feelings, Ms. Vivian. This is about saving a failing business that 16 people depend on for their livelihoods. Your mother didn't tell you how close this place came to closing, did she? Elena glanced at Vivian, who was suddenly very interested in her fabric swatches. When I visit potential investments, I don't arrive in a 3-piece suit announcing my intentions, Lucas continued. I experience the business as an average customer would. What I saw here was a boutique with exquisite products and abysmal customer service, spearheaded by you. That's not. 3 people left while I was browsing because no one helped them. You were too busy mocking me. Another customer overheard your comments and quietly put back the scarf she was considering. That's lost revenue, Ms. Vivian, not clever banter. Elena's cheeks burned. She never considered her behavior from a business perspective before. You're in inventory management not as punishment, but because you need to understand what makes this business tick from the ground up. Every return item represents a failure in our process, wrong sizing, quality issues, or customer service problems. If you can fix those issues at the source, you'll contribute far more than you did swanning around the sales floor. When put that way, the assignment sounded almost logical. Elena's shoulders slumped slightly. So what am I supposed to do? Spend the rest of my career in the stockroom? That depends entirely on you, Lucas replied. I promote based on performance, not pedigree. The following Monday, Elena arrived early. She'd spent the weekend researching inventory management systems and developing a more efficient method for processing returns. If this was her domain now, she'd make it work. Over the next month, a reluctant transformation began. Elena streamlined the stockroom, created a digital catalog of inventory, and implemented a color-coded system for tracking returns. She developed a feedback form that identified patterns in customer dissatisfaction. One afternoon, Lucas appeared in the stockroom doorway. Your return rate analysis was impressive, he said without preamble. Particularly the correlation between certain sales associates and return frequencies. Elena looked up from her computer. Thanks. I noticed Sandra has the lowest return rate. I've been studying her approach. Lucas nodded, something like approval flashing across his features. There's a staff meeting tomorrow morning. Be prepared to present your findings. The meeting marked Elena's first return to the conference room since her demotion. As she presented her data, she felt a strange sense of accomplishment, different from the superficial thrill of making a large sale, but somehow more substantial. Based on the return patterns, I recommend adjusting our sizing charts and training sales staff to be more accurate about fit expectations, she concluded. The room was silent for a moment before Lucas spoke. Excellent analysis. Implement your recommendations and track the results. As the meeting adjourned, Elena found herself face to face with Sandra. That was really good, Sandra said, surprising Elena with what appeared to be genuine admiration. I had a decent teacher, Elena replied, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. You were right, you know. About him noticing how I treat people. Sandra smiled. He notices everything. That's why he's successful, and why you might be too, eventually. For the first time since Lucas Reed had walked into Vivian's boutique, Elena felt something unexpected, not resentment or humiliation, but a flicker of something that felt remarkably like hope. The invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock, embossed with gold lettering. The Metropolitan Museum of Fashion invites you to the annual Luxury Retail Gala. It was the event of the season, a night when the city's fashion elite gathered to see and be seen. In previous years, Elena had been the belle of the ball. She'd glide through the museum's grand halls in couture gowns, air-kissing industry titans and posing for society photographers. The invitation had always been addressed to Elena Vivian, Brand Director, Vivian's Boutique. This year, the envelope was addressed to Vivian's Boutique, with no personal name. And this year, Lucas Reed would be representing the business. Elena stared at the invitation on the break room bulletin board, a hollow feeling spreading through her chest. She'd been at the boutique for 3 months since her demotion, 3 months of stockrooms and spreadsheets, of sensible shoes and practical ponytails. Her designer wardrobe hung unworn in her closet. Her social media accounts lay dormant. "You could still attend," said a voice behind her. Sandra stood there, coffee mug in hand. "As a guest, I mean. You know everyone there." Elena shook her head. "And say what? Hi, remember me? I used to be somebody in this industry?" As if to punctuate her fall from grace, Elena's phone chimed with a notification. Natasha, her once constant companion, had posted photos from a yacht party in Monaco. Elena hadn't been invited. In fact, Natasha hadn't returned her calls in weeks. "Your mother asked if you're joining them for dinner tonight," Sandra said, changing the subject. "Lucas is discussing the new branch location." Another twist of the knife. The boutique was expanding, just as Lucas had inquired about during his first visit, opening a second location in the revitalized downtown district. It would feature a cafe and rotating pop-up spaces for emerging designers. The business press was calling it the future of luxury retail, and Elena had nothing to do with it. Later that evening, Elena sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through her credit card statement. The numbers blinked back accusingly. For years, she'd lived as if the boutique were her personal wardrobe, charging extravagant purchases and lavish dinners to company accounts or her own credit cards, secure in the belief that her position was untouchable. Now the bills were coming due. Her personal cards were nearly maxed out. Her salary as inventory manager was a fraction of her former compensation. And her social invitations, previously a flood of galas, launches, and exclusive parties, had dried to a trickle, then stopped entirely. The society that had embraced Elena Vivian, fashion heiress, had no use for Elena Vivian, back-office employee. Her phone rang. Her mother. "You missed dinner," Vivian said when Elena answered. "I wasn't up for it," Elena replied, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. A pause. "Lucas asked about you. He's been reviewing your inventory reports." "Fascinating." "Elena." Her mother's voice sharpened. "This attitude isn't helping anyone, least of all yourself. The boutique is thriving again. We've hired 6 new people. The second location breaks ground next month. Congratulations. I'm sure Lucas is very pleased with himself." "This isn't about Lucas." Vivian's rare display of temper startled Elena into silence. "This is about the choices you made. The way you treated people. The money you wasted. I handed the business over to save it. You almost cost us everything." The harsh truth hung between them, impossible to deny any longer. "Come to the office tomorrow," Vivian said, her voice gentler now. "Lucas wants to talk to you about a new position." Hope flickered briefly. "Back on the sales floor?" "No," Vivian sighed. "But it's an opportunity, Elena. Perhaps your last one with Vivian's." The next morning, Elena found Lucas in the conference room, surrounded by blueprints for the new location. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, striving for a professional tone. Lucas nodded toward a chair. "Your work in inventory management has been excellent. Returns are down 20%, and your shipping efficiency improvements saved us considerably last quarter." Despite herself, Elena felt a flush of pride. "Thank you. But I think your talents could be better utilized," he continued. "I have a proposal for you." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a job description. Customer Experience Director. Elena skimmed the document, her heart sinking. "This is an entry-level position." "It's a new position," Lucas corrected. "One that will shape how customers interact with both locations." "But yes, you would be starting at the beginning, shadowing sales associates, working with customers directly, learning what actually happens on the floor rather than dictating from above." Elena closed the folder, her jaw tight. Why would I accept a demotion from a position I'm already overqualified for? Lucas studied her for a long moment. Because you love this business, despite everything. Because you know fashion. Because deep down, you understand that knowing the price of everything but the value of nothing is what brought you to this point. His words struck uncomfortably close to home. You have potential, Elena. Real potential, not just the artificial kind that comes from being the owner's daughter. He leaned forward. But I need someone who sees customers as people to be served, not wallets to be emptied. Someone who remembers what it feels like to be judged and dismissed. Someone like Sandra, Elena said quietly. Someone like you could be, Lucas countered. If you're willing to humble yourself completely and learn this business from the ground up, truly learn it, not just perform it. Elena stared at the folder, at the modest salary figure that would barely cover her rent. At the description that included everything from sales floor shifts to cleaning fitting rooms. At her last chance. Outside the conference room, she could see the boutique bustling with life. Sandra was training 2 new associates. Her mother was escorting a long-time client through a new collection. Even from here, Elena could feel the renewed energy of the place. Energy that had been missing during her reign as the floor's self-appointed queen. I'll need time to think about it, she finally said. Lucas nodded. You have until Monday. But Elena, he met her eyes directly. This is the last position I'll offer you at Vivian's. If you decline, I'll provide a generous severance and excellent references. But your time here will be over. As Elena left the conference room, the weight of his ultimatum pressed on her shoulders. Her pride demanded she walk away, slam the door, and never look back. But where would she go? Who was Elena Vivian without Vivian's boutique? For the first time in her adult life, she had no ready answer. 1 year later, Elena carefully arranged a display of leather loafers in the men's section of Vivian's downtown, the boutique's thriving second location. The space blended industrial elements with warm woods and soft lighting, creating an atmosphere both luxurious and welcoming. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers while the attached cafe filled the air with the scent of fresh coffee. Excuse me, said a hesitant voice behind her. Could you help me find something? Elena turned to see a young man, perhaps college age, shifting nervously from foot to foot. His clothes were clean but inexpensive, department store jeans and a button-up shirt that didn't quite fit his lanky frame. She recognized the look in his eyes, the mixture of desire and intimidation that came from stepping into a world you weren't sure would accept you. 1 year ago, she would have dismissed him with a glance. Today, she smiled warmly. Of course. What can I help you find? I have a job interview next week, my first real office job, he explained, his words tumbling out quickly. I need shoes that look professional, but I can't afford much. Maybe something on sale? Elena nodded thoughtfully. Let's find you something perfect. She led him to a display she'd personally designed. Foundations collection, featuring quality basics at more accessible price points. It had been her first major project as customer experience director. These are Italian leather but from a newer designer we're showcasing, she explained, showing him a pair of classic Oxfords. They're built to last for years with proper care, and they're currently part of our new professionals program, 20% off and free shoe care kit. The young man looked relieved. That's actually within my budget. Can I try them? As she helped him find his size and demonstrated how to properly care for the leather, Elena caught sight of herself in a nearby mirror. Gone was the flashy jewelry and status symbol clothing. Instead, she wore a simple black dress with a Vivian's name tag. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek low ponytail, her makeup subtle and professional. The transformation went far deeper than appearance. Over the past year, Elena had rebuilt herself from the ground up, just as Lucas had challenged her to do. She'd worked every position in the store, from sales associate to fitting room attendant, from cashier to display designer. She'd cleaned bathrooms, unpacked shipments, and handled difficult customers with newfound patience. The young man admired the shoes on his feet, his expression a mixture of pride and disbelief. These feel amazing, but I'm worried they're still too expensive. Maybe I should look for something cheaper. Style doesn't come from a price tag, Elena said gently. It comes from how you carry yourself. These shoes will last 5 times longer than a cheaper pair, and they'll help you walk into that interview with confidence. From across the sales floor, Lucas observed the interaction, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He'd been right about Elena. Beneath the entitled exterior had been a woman with genuine talent, and, surprisingly, a capacity for growth few would have predicted. After the young man completed his purchase, walking a little taller in his new shoes, Lucas approached. "That was well handled," he said. "He'll be a loyal customer now." Elena nodded. "He reminded me of someone." "Oh? You," she said simply. "When you first walked into the boutique." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Except I wasn't actually a struggling student." "No, but you understood something I didn't back then," Elena replied. "That everyone deserves the same respect, regardless of what they're wearing." She straightened a display absently. "Though I still can't believe you deliberately wore mismatched laces just to see how we treat you. People reveal their true character when they think no one important is watching," Lucas said with a shrug. "It told me everything I needed to know about the business, and about you." Elena felt a familiar flush of shame, but it no longer overwhelmed her. The past year had taught her that humiliation could be survived, that pride could be swallowed, and that second chances sometimes came disguised as rock bottom. "The downtown location quarterly numbers are ready for review," she said, changing the subject. "Sales are up 22% from projections." "I've seen them," Lucas nodded. "Your customer service innovations are a significant factor. The personal styling program has been particularly successful." A comfortable silence fell between them, the kind that would have been impossible a year ago, when every conversation was laden with resentment and wounded pride. "We're opening the Chicago location next spring," Lucas said finally. "The board approved it this morning." Elena's heart quickened. The expansion to Chicago had been mentioned for months, but the details had been kept quiet. "They'll need an experienced manager," Lucas continued. "Someone who understands luxury retail from every angle. Someone who's worked every position and knows what it means to build something from nothing." Elena stared at him, scarcely daring to hope. "Are you offering me the Chicago location?" "I'm offering you the opportunity to apply for it," he clarified. "You'd be competing against external candidates. But yes, I'm endorsing you for consideration." For a moment, Elena was transported back to the conference room a year ago, to the ultimatum and the crossroads. She'd almost walked away. Almost let pride destroy her last chance. "Thank you," she said simply. "I won't let you down." Lucas nodded. "I know you won't. You've learned to walk in other people's shoes, quite literally." Later that evening, as Elena locked up the downtown location, she paused to look at the illuminated sign above the door. "Vivian's," in elegant script, a legacy that had almost been lost. She no longer ruled over the boutique like a queen over her court. Her name was no longer synonymous with the brand itself. Yet somehow, she'd found something more valuable: purpose, respect earned rather than demanded, and the quiet satisfaction of work done well. Elena Vivian had lost her throne, but in its place, she'd built something far more enduring, a future entirely her own.